We are back. Welcome into the Women's Basketball Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things WNBA, college hoops, oh so much more. Mia O'Brien, Mitchell Northam. Much has changed in the world of women's basketball and both our lives, maybe, possibly, since the last time we spoke. Hope everyone had a great WNBA All-Star weekend. We will certainly dive into the storylines coming out of Indianapolis, but we also will address all of the biggest storylines this week in the world of women's hoops. First things first, Mitch, how are you? Baby shower, a lot going on, travels, ACC kickoff. Can't wait to dive into all of it here today.
Baby shower in the books. I saw Bill Belichick in a bathroom in a hotel at ACC kickoff. He was just texting on his phone, leaning against the wall. Bathroom, mind my own business.
Did you wash? Did he wash his hands? He washed his hands, to be clear.
I'm not sure. I cannot confirm or deny. I didn't see him use the restroom. Looked like he was maybe waiting for a stall to open. TBD. And then there was a horde of media people just waiting for him to come out of the bathroom. When he finished doing whatever he had to do, I think it was also maybe like he just needed a minute because he was just, like I said, in the bathroom, like looking at his phone, like kind of leaning against the wall. Maybe just, needed to take a break from all the craziness at ACC kickoff. It was kind of wild. Like there was increased security. I've never seen that before in an ACC kickoff where like there were security people like set at like both ends of the escalator and like asking media members like if they weren't wearing their credential or if it wasn't showing like, hey, where's your credential? Never seen that in an ACC kickoff before. So that was an interesting experience. But I got a lot of women's basketball stories out of it because I got to talk to Jackie Carson and I talked to Jim Phillips and I talked to Wes Moore, not at kickoff, but on Zoom. It was an eventful week. And now I'm back here in the Triangle.
We're going to hit all of those storylines that you took away from ACC kickoff in Charlotte. I do have to ask, Frank Reich, Andrew Luck, did they get Ron Rivera? Did the people of North Carolina give them the same reception that Big Bill got?
Not exactly, though. I will say that Andrew Luck, has lost a lot of weight. I mean, very like skinny and fit, and also just generally, looked like he was excited to be there and like excited to be part of ACC kickoff. Looked like he was having a good time. Frank Reich and Ron Rivera, there was like a little mini sort of like past Panthers coaches reunion of sorts. Lots of Charlotte media were very interested in talking to both of those guys. There was no sign of Matt Rule because, Nebraska is not in the ACC, of course.
Oh, they're not? I didn't know all this conference realignment. Something may have changed.
You never know.
Exactly.
I'm not sure. So maybe Stanford's flight path maybe crosses over Nebraska at some point if they have to go to Boston College. My geography is not great. But yes, nonetheless, no Matt Rule there. But I think he's probably everyone's least favorite Panthers coach. So yeah, it was good.
Right. Well, at least David Tepper is lower on the power rankings.
So David Tepper also not there.
He will always have that. Quick note, yes, I won't bury the lead. Mitch and I almost, I don't want to say we gave the spoiler alert on the last episode, but yes, I have joined the Mouse. I have gone back to the mothership. I am now an employee of the Walt Disney Company and ESPN. Doesn't change what we're doing here on the Women's Basketball Podcast. Just an amazing opportunity for me to get to cover all sports at a national level on ESPN Radio. I'm very, very grateful for that. But of course, and this only validates what we do here on the Women's Basketball Podcast even more, Mitch, the number of times that I've heard in my 3.5, 4 weeks with the company, I really love your women's basketball coverage. Women's basketball, that is the thing, and I want to learn more. We're so happy you're here to help us learn, and I hope I could teach them a thing or two. And then I say, go listen to the Women's Basketball Podcast, like, subscribe, and also follow Mitch, Primetime Mitch on Twitter. You can follow me too, but mostly follow Mitch if you truly want to learn everything when it comes to women's hoops in 2025.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Shout out to the Mouse.
Shout out to the Mouse, man. It's not only a dream come true, but full circle, as I did, if you saw my Instagram post, I did intern for the Walt Disney Company and ESPN when I was in London while I was a sophomore at Ithaca College. And so it was really cool. My old bosses, which one of my old bosses is now the head of marketing for Chelsea, which is amazing. Shout out Scott.
Was that like an Olympics thing?
No. So that was actually, so Ithaca has a London center. And so I studied abroad spring of my sophomore year. And one of the potential internships that other Ithaca students had done in the past that I interviewed for was with ESPN UK, was then called ESPN America, and got the job. And so, yes, I did post. If you want to check it out on IG, MoBryan_16, my mugshot from my interview, not my actual ID. I didn't want to post that. That would be kind of weird. So it's just a visitor's pass. But young Mo Bryan has gone back to the mothership. But don't worry, because I know there's been some speculation. We are still here on the Women's Basketball Podcast. Wherever you're listening, keep it locked right here, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, now that we've gotten the housekeeping out of the way, it is time to start this show, as we do each and every week, with our Her of the Week. And this week's Her of the Week goes to one Kelsey Mitchell. Kelsey Mitchell is thriving, even sans Caitlin Clark, who remains sidelined with that right groin injury. She dropped 35 points, was 7 of 10 from three-point range with 6 assists against the Chicago Sky on Sunday. She has scored 20-plus points every game since the All-Star break, her third All-Star appearance, mind you. For me, Mitch, what warms my heart the most about good Kelsey, because sometimes, as Fever fans know, we get Helsey, which is the bad Kelsey. What I have personally been so impressed by, what was sorely lacking with this Fever offense, and we lamented it at large here on the pod. Aaliyah Boston, 7 shots less per game without Caitlin Clark during her first prolonged absence. That is no longer the case. Well, yes, that number is still down. The pick and roll has gone from the ABCC to the ABKM, if you may. Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston finding a lot of success in the two-man game, and it warms my heart because that's one of my favorite aspects of the Fever offense when Caitlin Clark is playing. And so it's great to see Kelsey Mitchell stepping in. And, you know, again, we've talked about it on this show, Mitch. Like, we take for granted Kelsey Mitchell was the face of this franchise. Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston come in, and she has gracefully taken on this role of the third star. And she's done it in a way where she's actually elevated her game through the process. It's a credit to her and who she is as a person, but as a player too.
Yeah, Kelsey Mitchell right now third in the WNBA in scoring with a career high 20.2 points per game. She's also 5th in three-pointers made per game, 2.4, which is about her. Actually, it is her career average, 2.4. So everything checking out there, which is good. But yeah, like you said, you know, I think this time around with the Caitlin injury, things have gone a little bit smoother, kind of without her. The Fever have won 2 in a row. We'll see if they can do 3 in a row against the Mercury.
We are recording this podcast. It's about almost 7 p.m. on Monday, July 28th. And so, yes, we know there's a couple of games on tonight. We also know there's 2 big pieces of breaking news, which I would like to formally, Mitch, thank the New York Liberty and the Los Angeles Sparks for pseudo leaking. Maybe Cam Brink decided to go rogue, and maybe, you know, someone got a good scoop on Breanna Stewart. I appreciate both of those bits of breaking news breaking prior to us recording this pod. But before we get to this week's starting 5, just let the listeners know the very latest we have on both Breanna Stewart and Cameron Brink.
Yeah, so Breanna Stewart, Sandy Brondello said there is no timetable for her return. Brondello also said it's unclear what part of her right leg is injured, which I think is interesting because the New York Post reported that she had imaging done on her right leg, which showed that she avoided significant injury. So I'm not sure if that's Brondello just kind of playing coy and kind of withholding some information, because theoretically, if you did imaging, you would be able to tell what was going on with her leg and what exactly was hurt or not hurt. Yeah, and then Cam Brink is coming back, apparently, right?
Yeah, nope. She told a reporter during shoot around today, prior to Tuesday night's game, that yeah, I'm playing tomorrow. So I guess she's playing tomorrow. And then there were a bunch of graphics, although I don't know if the Sparks at this juncture have actually formally acknowledged it. But Cam Brink is on video saying she's playing tomorrow. So Lynn Roberts had said last week week that they had a 2-week window where they play 4 home games and a stretch of 5 games. We'll get to the Sparks here in just a second because they are an interesting storyline on today's show. And I guess this is the game in that 5-game stretch that Lynn Roberts and company said, you know what, she's cleared. Let's see how she can fare against the Las Vegas Aces.
Yeah, if you go to the Twitter feed of John W. Davis, who covers the Sparks, he has a video where Cameron Brink just tells him, yeah, I'm playing Tuesday night. And then he has a video for practicing. So, yeah, first time in 13 months that she'll be back on the court.
What does that mean for the Sparks? We're going to hit that head on in this week's starting 5. But first, a little bit more from Mitch's foray into the world of college football. Yes, but more importantly, women's hoops at the ACC kickoff and his time in Charlotte. Take it away, Mitch.
Yeah, so I didn't expect to write as much as I did about women's basketball last week as I was at ACC kickoff, but I end up doing so. One of the stories I ended up writing about was kind of where the ACC stands on NCAA tournament expansion. And I kind of embarked on writing about this because during his basically state of the conference address that he gives out every year at these football media days, ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips said, essentially, I'll just read you the quote. Our men's coaches are more in favor of expansion. Our women's coaches are more against expansion. It's almost like a split in the conference as it's related to that. So then I followed up and I got some time with Jackie Carson, the ACC Senior Associate Commissioner for women's basketball. And she confirmed that. She said pretty much the majority of the ACC women's basketball coaches were like, quote, we don't want expansion. Which I thought was interesting, but I think like there's a couple reasons why that makes sense. The first, like I think if you're looking for why there's a split in the conference between men's coaches and women's coaches, the women's coaches haven't had a problem with getting into the NCAA tournament. And the men's coaches in the ACC lately, they have.
Quick interjection. How much of this is because Coach K or Mr. K, excuse me, Mr. K on his way out the door started waving this flag of everyone should get into the tournament. We should have 100 teams. And so now all these ACC coaches are just trying to defend Darth Vader himself.
I think the ACC coaches are more operating from a standpoint of we would like to extend our employments, and the way we can do that is get it into the NCAA tournament.
Will Wade's going to get in this year. Listen, the conference, the
I think
rising tides lift all boats. Men's ACC basketball coaches, relax. It's going to be.
We'll see. I think like if you're someone like Steve Forbes.
Yes.
You
Shout
probably
out Lone
want,
Tree, Iowa. Love Steve.
You probably want the tournament expanded, but on the women's side, like this hasn't been an issue. I mean, every year for the past several seasons, the ACC is getting 8 or 9, teams in. I think they wanted to have more in last year. Virginia Tech left on the bubble, but they still got 8 teams in, which is a very good number. The other thing that Jackie mentioned that I think is a difference between the men's tournament and the women's tournament is, so if you expand theoretically, let's say you go to 72 or 76 or whatever, right? What you're talking about is more play-in games and more first 4 games. I don't know what we would call them, with first 8, first 16, whatever. But on the men's side, these are all played at a neutral site in Dayton, Ohio, and it's a very popular thing that people like to go to, and Dayton draws well, and it's a basketball market, and so on and so on and so on. On the women's side, those games are played at the top 16 seed host sites, and those games, as they currently stand, are usually played between mid-major teams who maybe don't have big fan bases and who don't really travel well. And so those games are not well attended. And so I think like that's a hurdle, right? Like, just like, all right, we're going to add more of these games that like not a lot of people are going to or watching anyways. Now, what Jackie said was like, okay, so well, if you change the format a little bit, maybe our coaches will think a little bit different about this. So if you put the first 4 or these play-in games, whatever you want to call them, at a neutral site, I have long advocated, by the way, that the women's first 4 should be in Norfolk, Virginia, home of Old Dominion, which is a former NCAA tournament champion. It was also where a Final Four was, all that good stuff. Like,
What's your stat about Conference USA?
The Sun Belt. The Sun Belt now has 2 former national champions in it, which is more than the Big East. So yeah, I think that's kind of some interesting points on the conference realignment thing, or not conference realignment, tournament expansion. I got all my changing landscape of college sports isms mixed up there. On tournament expansion, it seems like it's probably not going to happen this year based on all the reporting that's been out there. We really haven't seen like a whole lot of movement one way or the other. Jim Phillips really talked about kind of exercising patience and stuff like that, and let's not rush into something. The other thing about the women's tournament expanding that I don't think coaches are thrilled about is if the tournament does expand, according to a report at Front Office Sports, it does not mean that ESPN is going to pay more in TV revenue for more games. So it's like, you're splitting up the money you already have. You have to feed more mouths out of the same pot, right? So that's not great. So I think I would imagine that most Power 4 women's basketball coaches probably don't want tournament expansion. I asked Wes Moore about it. He kind of seemed to be, he could go one way or the other. He was kind of just like, whatever they want to decide to do, I'm good with, and so yeah, we'll see.
I am fascinated to see if this does indeed happen. I feel like we've talked about it for years now, but the fact that we had the filibusters at both the men's and the NCAA tournament conventions earlier this summer says to me, thank goodness. We will stick at 68 for now. Let's get it back to the W as part of this week's starting 5. Paige Bueckers was sat on Sunday, and in parentheses, rest was the rationale for why Paige Bueckers did not play in the Dallas Wings loss to the Las Vegas Aces, 106-80. That game Sunday in Dallas. Of course, tonight, again, we're recording this around 7 p.m. In about an hour's time, the reigning WNBA champion New York Liberty will travel to Dallas, play at the College Park Center in Arlington to face Paige Bueckers and the Wings. She is expected to play tonight, Mitch, but our good friend and sometimes co-host of this podcast, Rebecca Kopelman, had asked me when we were in Indianapolis earlier this month, what exactly is load management? When do you think it's actually, is that a thing? And I said it's absolutely going to be a thing because one of the most contentious points in the upcoming CBA negotiation is the number of games being played in a short amount of time. The Dallas Wings are facing a back-to-back. Yes, it's at home, which is a little bit different than what Caitlin Clark and the Fever faced, the back-to-back that she got hurt at TD Garden in the front half of that 2-game set. But ultimately, it's for the same reasons. Granted, different injury history, or at least in the short term when it comes to those 2 stars. But the Dallas Wings know that this game tonight on prime time, I believe it's on ABC. If it's not, it's on ESPN. It's on the mothership. And in turn, they know the Liberty and the Wings, that's a massive game. And the Wings recognize the opportunity that on the floor they have to put, I'm not going to say, to make up ground in the standings. Is that fair, Mitch? Can I say that? I feel like.
Yeah.
They want to be competitive. They're a young squad. We want to see what they look like when they trot out Isaiah James and JJ Quinterly with Paige a little bit more as opposed to continuing to try to fit square pegs in circle holes, even if Coach Chris's strategy has even Paige raising her eyebrows now in viral clips on the sideline. Point being, what do you make of load management arriving in the W? Because after this happened, Rebecca texted me, shout out Rebecca, by the way, and she goes, we made it. We're finally right there with the MMBA.
As you were talking, I went to Twitter real quick and looked, and there is a photo of Paige Bueckers warming up, so it looks like she is playing tonight. I think that this conversation, particularly about load management around Paige Bueckers, is interesting because it goes back to the debate of, is there enough time between the start of the W season and the end of the college season, and how much kind of wear and tear are you putting on rookies, right? Like we saw Georgia Amor go out in the preseason, ACL done for the year. I actually asked Paige about this. We might have talked about this on the podcast, but I can't remember. But when I went to Minnesota, I kind of asked her like if there was enough time. And she was kind of like, I think it would be important for the health and safety of the players, especially coming from college, that there was a larger break, but I'm not going to sit here and complain about it. Just for context, so between her final college game and her first professional game, Paige Beckers had 40 days. Now that's, going through the draft, that's going through preseason workouts,
preseason
that's
games,
right, all that stuff. So you only get that amount of time essentially to rest a little bit, to prepare to face an elevated pool of talent, to move to a new city and familiarize yourself with a new team, teammates, coaches, terminology, all that stuff. 40 days, that's it. By contrast, Cooper Flagg, the number one pick in the NBA draft, like Paige, the number one pick in the WNBA draft, will get 200 days to accomplish that task. So there's a big disparity there, and I think it's something that the WNBA has to look at. If you don't want players taking days off like this, the load management thing, I think like this is going to happen. Like if you don't move this date at all, I'm not really sure like what the exact cure for this is, the solution to this problem. Because I've also seen complaints about, players playing back-to-back games. Like there's more back-to-backs this year. There's shorter windows between games, all that stuff. So are you talking about lengthening the season into like November for the finals? Now you're crossing over with the start of college season. Is that better? I mean, the NBA plays at the same time as the men's college season and the women's college season. Like, is it okay to have more of that overlap on that end of it? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
Answer to that, Mitch, and we've talked about this a lot in my house. The belief, at the very least, my fiance, who is becoming more of a mainstream WNBA fan, but casual still, he knows at least, I'd say, 5 to 10 players on a roster,
Sure,
depending on the roster. So Kevin's getting there. Kevin said he believes if that was to happen, if they played the W playoff games on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, which is very exclusive. So I would argue Fridays could also be in the mix, with all due respect to college football games on a Friday and high school football, to be clear.
Right.
But if they maximize those days, and you could even throw one on Monday or a Thursday to compete with Monday night or Thursday night football.
Yeah,
I think
you can do Monday and Thursday. Yeah.
The problem is when they then bury a marquee postseason game at 1:00 on a Sunday amidst the NFL calendar. And I understand part of that is part of the television rights deal. ESPN doesn't have any content playing at that time. It's a marquee time slot, regardless of the fact that it's competing against the NFL. And so they want to put it on. And I understand and respect that. But ultimately, to grow the game, if you are to push the calendar into November, I think that's the way to keep the health of the sport and the interest not peak in July. And then by October, everyone's looking around saying, who even won? Oh, the postseason's still going on? Oh, cool.
Right.
By putting it during the week, I think you would still see the interest, because people at that point in time are so conditioned to sit on their couch and watch television. I think there might be even more interest.
Yeah, it's a tough problem. It's a tough situation, and I don't know. I mean, I think, when I did this story when I went to Minnesota, I kind of asked Cheryl Reeve the same question, and she kind of seemed to think there's not really a whole lot we can do about it. Like, this is kind of our window, and we're kind of locked into this, and this is the time of the year where we decided we're like, this maximizes our viewership. And it's hard to argue with that. So I think they're kind of just going to have to deal with some more load management, maybe.
Let us get back to the college game. Mitch has a couple more notes for us. One name that we have not had a chance, I don't think, to circle back to. And since you already brought up Wes Moore, the head coach of NC State, he's got someone new hanging out in the triangle. Are the reports was your prediction spot on the nose right here on this very podcast?
It was. Yeah. So I don't think we've talked about this since it happened. I think we talked about Khamil Pierre when she left Vanderbilt, and I made a prediction that, maybe NC State might be a good fit for her. As it turns out, it was a great fit for her, because that's where she is. So this happened on July 15th. So I think we last recorded on July 14th. So yeah, Khamil Pierre is now a member of the NC State Wolfpack. which is a huge, huge win for them. As I've talked about before on this podcast, NC State took a lot of swings in the transfer portal and did not get any of those players. They tried to get Kara Dunn. They tried to get Ali Kubik. They tried to get Fatmata Jana. They tried to get Wenentanda from Texas. I'm probably Kylie Kitts. They tried to get her, Chloe Kitts' younger sister, and came up empty. And I think it turned out to be a little bit of a blessing in disguise because NC State had a certain amount of money for NIL and for rev share and whatever, and they didn't get to spend that in the spring on transfer portal targets because they didn't get any of them. So what they did is they were able to retain the really good players on their current roster, like your Zoe Brookses and your Zam Joneses and your Tilda Triggers. And, things were looking a little bleak there for a little while, but then Khamil Pierre becomes available after she was reportedly dismissed from the team. Vanderbilt framed it a different way, but it was reported by some other outlets that she was dismissed. Really weird situation. Westmore kind of walked us through a little bit of like how it all kind of happened, and I was able to do some reporting before we talked to Wes. And basically what I've kind of pieced together is essentially, Khamil Pierre becomes available. Everybody sort of learns about it. And the rules are that Khamil Pierre cannot directly talk to the coaches, but there's a back channel and there's a middleman and there's maybe an agent or a family member or whoever this person might be, right, that can kind of facilitate some of those conversations without necessarily breaking rules. There were a lot of schools, a lot of Power 4 schools that were very interested in landing Khamil Pierre. For Khamil Pierre essentially to be able to play next season, she had to apply to and then be accepted in schools, this month for the fall semester, which I think, some compliance office things had to kind of be worked out on that end. We're pretty late in the calendar. So basically what I was told is, it kind of came down to about 5 schools that Khamil Pierre applied to, and she was accepted to 2 of them, NC State and Michigan State, and she chose NC State.
Question. She's transferring from Vanderbilt. Who were the other 3 schools? Were they Ivy Leagues that she could get into Vanderbilt, but she couldn't get into them? Or wait for it. For those who may have missed last episode, is Khamil going to be a walk-on? And so she does not have a scholarship yet. So she had to get in as a true academic student. With all due respect to Khamil Pierre and her academic standing at Vanderbilt.
So that's the thing. I think the answer to that question is yes. She has to essentially she is just transferring as a regular student and then will be essentially I think a walk-on of sorts, though NC State has announced this publicly. Like they've said, hey, she's on the roster and the whole thing. And, the way to kind of compensate her, like I said, because NC State didn't use any of that money in the spring, it's after July 1st. Now we know what we're dealing with house and rev share and all that. NC State's got a little bit of money to spend. She can be compensated in that way. The other schools she applied to were Power 4 programs. I think they were programs where maybe the admissions office wasn't really willing to play ball, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. I can think of a few of those. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And so,
does one also play in the triangle area? Maybe 2 of them, possibly.
I think one of them does.
Okay, cool. Yeah. It's a private school. Cool. Oh, very sneaky, Mitchell Northam. Interesting. I figure the other one plays in South Bend, Indiana, but also I don't know if they even have enough players to,
Oh God, I don't know about that, but they could have really used Khamil Pierre, as could have NC State. So NC State gets her, and like Westmore told us, like she's a walking double-double. She averaged basically 20 and 10 in the SEC last year, playing alongside a ball-dominant guard in Michaela Blakes. So I just, I look at kind of the pairing and some of the pieces that NC State has now, and the ACC is pretty wide open. And you have Khamil Pierre, you have Tilda Trigger, really, really good front court pairing. You have Zoe Brooks, you have Zam Jones. I mean, that's, as far as starting lineups go, like that's a roster that's going to contend, I think, for the ACC title. So, Westmore kind of framed it as, the good Lord looked down on me and, knew that I messed up this transfer portal thing. Yeah. So he also said something about margaritas for everybody, like in celebration. And so West is feeling good. West is very happy to get Khamil Pierre. And the teams that were not able to get her, they are not happy.
Producer Dimitri is in Greece, but he says he's going to make the thumbnails, even though I could too for the YouTube versions of this episode. I now want to make a margarita and put Westmore's face in the margarita. So thank you for that, Wes. Mitch, let's round out not the starting five because we do have one more WNBA note we want to hit, but for the sake of time, hit us with the other bit of college news when it comes to recruiting.
Oh yeah. So the top-ranked 2026 women's basketball recruit is going to USC. She is Sanaya Hall. Mm-hmm. She is very, very good, as number one recruits typically are. For Lindsay Gottlieb, this is the third number one recruit that she's gotten now in the past 4 years. When you talk about Juju Watkins in 2023, Jazzy Davidson this year in 2025, and now 2026, Sanaya Hall. Sanaya Hall is coming off of the FIBA U19 World Cup, and she was the MVP of that tournament, led the Americans to the gold medal. 6'1" guard from Ohio, kind of can do a little bit of everything. She averaged a Team USA U19 record 19.9 points per game in this tournament. There were a lot of really top programs in the mix for her, including North Carolina and South Carolina, both of which she had visited in recent months. UCLA and Ohio State also in the mix. Had offers from all the other, top schools and stuff. So I think for USC, this kind of points me to, that 26-27 season now where you're going to have a fully healthy Juju Watkins back for probably her final college season. You're going to have Sanaya Hall as a freshman. You'll have Jazzy Davidson, Kennedy Smith. I mean, they're kind of all in now for, I think, that season for 26-27. And I think will probably be viewed by a lot of people as, maybe if not the top, one of the top contenders.
One quick note before we keep it in California, but move it to the WNBA. With that said, what you just described, they're all in on 26-27, which would be Juju Watkins' senior year. You and I have both said on this podcast, Lisa Bluter has said it on multiple podcasts as well, the former head coach of Iowa. In her estimation as a longtime college coach, in our estimation covering the sport, Mitch, neither of us believe Juju Watkins plays during the 2025-2026 season, correct?
I don't think so. And USC hasn't announced anything to that end, but I just don't see it happening. I mean, she was hurt in late March, this past season. I mean, typically, usually like these things take a whole year to really fully come back
10.2 months. I was told by a medical professional in the professional sports space last week.
Yeah. Okay. So 10.2 months, you're talking about at the earliest then mid-January. And I just, if like there is a scenario where maybe Juju, let's say they win the national title in 26-27, or if they come up short, whichever way it goes, what if Juju wants to come back for another year and play a true fourth senior season of college basketball? I think you would want to keep that option open. Paige Beckers did that. Yep. And so did Olivia Miles. Olivia Miles is about to do that now. So, and I think if you look at the history of those two injuries, Juju is a guard like both of them. They sat out for full seasons. So I would be very, very, very surprised if Juju Watkins is on the court at all next season.
The State Farm checks, they'll clear all the same.
Certainly, yes.
So this final note in this week's starting five is a two-parter. We historically have been high on the Los Angeles Sparks and Kelsey Plum, the acquisition of who Mitch put an early, futures bet on a couple months ago to be the leading scorer in the WNBA. We also have just reported earlier, the news broke that Cam Brink is coming back tomorrow, Tuesday, as we record this podcast. I couple that news of the Sparks on the rise, the reality that they played one of the toughest schedules in the W in the first half of the season. They have a much easier, if only on paper, second half of the season. They are rolling. And on the flip side, in Northern California, the Golden State Valkyries, one of the best stories in sports this year, let alone in the W, as an expansion franchise that has hovered around a playoff spot most of its inaugural season, loses All-Star Kayla Thornton now for the rest of the season to a season-ending injury. They certainly did not look the part in their last two games, Mitch. I mean, absolutely just annihilated by the Connecticut Sun. Good to see a friend of the program, Marina Mabry, alive and well. That was nice, but it wasn't really a fun game to watch because the Sun got the dub 95-64, excuse me. And so I look at the standings as they currently stand, and I can't help but wonder, is one California team slide going to lead to another seeing the opening and running right through that door with a healthy roster at long last?
I think that's possible because I do think, and we can maybe get into this a little bit more later in some of our bold predictions. I think that Cam Brink coming back is really going to open things up for the Sparks and maybe help Kelsey Plum out a lot. I mean, she's still one of the top scorers in the league this season. With Brink out, I think Brink coming back, being somebody who just takes up a lot of attention in the paint, and has all the skills that she has, I think it's going to open up some things for Kelsey Plum, open up some things for Rickea Jackson. I think this is a really good sign for the Sparks, and the Valkyries. I think they have some things to figure out with Kayla Thornton sidelined.
And I think that the Mystics, one of our other favorite teams to talk about here on the Women's Basketball Podcast, look, like, we love them. We're so proud of them for sending three women to the All-Star game. Two of them are girls. I mean, Sonia Citron and Kiki Ariafen are both rookies. But ultimately, will the rookie growing pains show, coupled with, we still don't know, and something tells me we're going to hit this in this week's main event, we still don't know what the Las Vegas Aces are. We're going to talk about Jewel Lloyd, the 0 for 10 performance. I'm not buying any stock. I am not going near them with a 39.5 foot pole. And so again, could the slide of those two teams also open the door for the Sparks? I think something tells me, Mitch, that it may come up in our bold predictions during this week's main event. But since we got to keep it moving, what is the beef? What is the beef?
Oh,
many of you, it's your favorite segment here on the Women's Basketball Podcast. I know Mitch is very excited to discuss this beef. I'm just wondering if he's going to, try to do this like Brian Windhorst, and why is that? And take us step by step to his bold prediction moments before, not even moments, and hours before the StudBudz got their national. I don't even know what to describe it as, because I want to start with, I do want to start with this. I am a massive Courtney Williams fan. Shout out folks in Georgia, Natisha Heidemann, big fan of what the two of them been able to do. I love the pod. I love the live stream. I couldn't stop watching the clips all of All-Star weekend, but you had a feeling that this was going to take a turn, and it has.
So just to kind of set the table for everybody, the sort of storm that is happening around the StudBudz podcast, YouTube show, whatever we want to call it, Twitch stream. So they had this great All-Star weekend, and everybody loved it. They streamed for 72 hours. It was unfiltered, really, I think, a behind the scenes look at the W and personalities and stuff like that. It was really fun. And after that happened, I saw a tweet from Dave Portnoy that said, I've now pulled up our group text with you, me, and Dimitri. The tweet from Dave Portnoy said, "I've never downloaded Twitch or any streaming platform in my life. That was until today. StudBudz has done more for marketing for the WNBA with their 72-hour stream than the bozos running the league have done since its inception. They are hilarious and humanize everyone." And I texted that to y'all on Monday, July 21st at 11:33 a.m. And I said, prediction, Portnoy is going to give StudBudz a podcast, and there's going to be a mixed reaction across the WNBA. Now, we're not at the point yet where he's given them a podcast. However, StudBudz, Courtney Williams and Allisha Heineman, have basically said he's going to come on the show and talk to us. And a lot of people in the WNBA have a big problem with this.
It's beef, as some may call it. It's beef.
Right. Because of the things that Dave Portnoy has said over the years, specifically things he has said about Angel Reese. I believe he has kind of, I don't want to say backtracked, but sort of tried to clarify his Angel Reese thing is like sports hate, like the way that I, a Steelers fan, hates the Ravens, so to speak. I don't know. I'm not going to defend that or, really dive into like right or wrong with Dave Portnoy. What I will say is this, and like I made this prediction to y'all because I've wondered for a while, I mean, basically a year, why Barstool doesn't yet have a WNBA or a women's basketball focused show, because Portnoy is very interested. Like, to anybody sort of like watching his Twitter feed or consuming his content, he is very interested in the WNBA, and maybe it is specifically Caitlin Clark fueled, but as he said, like, he was watching the StudBudz Twitch stream. The other thing about Dave Portnoy, love him, hate him, whatever, is like that guy knows how to identify talent, and he knows how to put them on a platform, and he knows how to make money with them. I mean, Pat McAfee and call her daddy and, all that stuff. Like that stuff started at Barstool with Dave Portnoy.
Yep.
And so I find all of this very, very interesting. And like, I'm not really like weighing in on whether like this is right or this is wrong, or, they should or shouldn't give him a platform or whatever, like, but what I will say also is like a thing about Courtney Williams is like, she bought that cash. And she's always been about that cash. And I will point folks to the 144 documentary, which came out about like the wobble and, the year, the WNBA's year in the bubble down in Florida, where she basically said, they were having a meeting about whether they were going to protest and whether or not they were going to kneel or, not play or whatever because of Black people who had been killed by police. And during this meeting, she said, quote, "People eat off my paycheck. So I decided to come here. To me, I didn't come to be here to be like, oh, power to the people. Let me come here to make a stance. I could have did that at the crib." So, she's basically like, I could have kneeled at home. I didn't really want to come to the wobble. I came here because I'm trying to get paid and I'm trying to get this check. And so, I think that maybe, and Portnoy has said on his podcast, I saw this floating around on social media, that it was StudBudz's people who reached out to him about coming on. So I don't know like where that initially started, but like I do think like there's a there. And I do think that because of the things that Dave Portnoy has said and done, and the things that Barstool has said and done, and some of the things that have been written and all that other stuff about, them, it really, there's a contrast between that and sort of like your, I think, average WNBA fan or somebody who's been in the WNBA for a while. And so I think that like this is making people a little bit uncomfortable, but I also think that this is a good sign for the league in terms of the league wanted to be in the mainstream. And this is kind of in the same ballpark as, when we complain about, not to go at your current employer, but like the Stephen A. Smiths of the world kind of diving in with like bad WNBA takes. It was like, well, guys, like this is kind of what you sign up for when you sign up to be in the mainstream. Like you haven't really been exposed to the bad sports takes or the bad sports talk because like before they just ignored you. So it's like, all right, well, this kind of comes with that. So I don't think like you can celebrate, the growth in audience and viewership and money that's coming without having to deal with some of these things and maybe having some hard conversations. And it seems like Courtney Williams and Allisha Heineman, if they do have Portnoy on, and I don't think that's happened yet, that is going to be a conversation that's watched by a lot of people. Because, Courtney Williams is not somebody who's going to back down from asking him like hard questions about Angel Reese or whatever. So it's going to be a fascinating conversation. And look, like this is the day where, everybody has a podcast. We have a podcast, and you talk to people, and maybe they talk some things out, and maybe we're all better for it, or maybe we're all worse for it. I don't know. We'll see. But everybody's going to watch it.
And Dave, if you need some journalist-driven podcasts and with regards to women's basketball at large, we're here. Just let us know. We're interested. Listen. It's a free country. Point being, to
quote Clay Davis from The Wire, I'll take anybody's money if they're giving it away.
So will Courtney Williams. I think that this goes, in my opinion, and I do hope that, and I believe, because Dave was on the sidelines of the Fever game, and again, maybe it's his fascination with Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham, which, by the way, it's hilarious that this segment is called What's the Beef? I feel like Sophie Cunningham could be the star every week, and now she's sponsored by Arby's. So
I was going to say, she has the Arby's sponsorship now.
Hot girls love Arby's. You eat Arby's, love Arby's. You can hit us up too as well. Arby's, we're here for What's the Beef. You can always be our sponsor. I think that genuinely Dave, to your point, recognizes what we talked about earlier in the podcast with our announcement section, that the W is hot right now. Women's basketball is hot, and whatever is hot, look at the last 12, 15 years. Dave Portnoy has found a way, because he's a pretty smart guy, like him or hate him, to incorporate whatever that is into whatever is coming next in the sports media space. That is where I want to and hope and pray that this is genuine for what Courtney and T have been able to do. I hope that it is them, if they are to potentially form a partnership, whether it's with Barstool or someone else, that they are the ones who get the opportunity to do that. But moreover, I believe, and this was one of my biggest takeaways from the StudBudz 72-hour Twitch stream, Dave saw that and said, why has no one ever done that before? And he looked at the Gen Zers, Caitlin Clark being like, yeah, I watched them for 3 hours while I was getting ready to go out. Like, I just flipped it on the TV as I was like hanging out with my friends. Sure. And the fact that so many young people, that's what they do. They watch their friends stream video games. They watch their friends live. And now that is seeping into older generations because it's their favorite stars who are essentially living reality television in real time. That's where I think that Dave also looked at that and was like, okay, maybe this should be a business model even beyond just the StudBudz. And so I hope it's the StudBudz that get to bring this to, they've already brought it to the mainstream, but bring it to an even more high profile opportunity, whether that is, again, it could be it could be my employer too, by the way. It still could be ESPN too. Whoever it is that comes to form some sort of partnership with them. But don't be mistaken. Other media companies are watching this and they're trying to hatch how they're going to do something similar.
Yeah, Tony Kornheiser always likes to say the answers to all your questions is money. And, I'm all for Courtney Williams and Natisha Hiedeman getting that bag. And I do think that, if you look at sort of the unfiltered nature and the rawness of StudBudz and kind of like the interviews that they do, and then that 72-hour thing kind of lines up with a lot of what Barstool does. It's not that crazy. It makes some sense. And, I think if we go down this road, we're about to have a lot of difficult conversations in the W. But look, get paid.
Let's also be real too. A lot of parents of young girls who follow the W, who may have an Instagram or Twitter account, they had to have a lot of hard conversations from some of the clips that came out of that stream that then went viral. So again, maybe it's more of a PG-13 audience, but I digress. Look, proud of those ladies, man, because it's an innovative idea, and I'm always here for creating and whatever is next. All right, we still got to get to our main event, and we are flying through and a little bit overtime in this week's The Women's Basketball Podcast. Okay. But we got plenty of time. First up, though, first things first, other breaking news. I think we actually announced this on the last pod, but if we didn't, the Sports Podcast Festival. It's back, folks. It's its second installment. It's in the Triangle. It's at the Rialto, Saturday, August 23rd, and your favorite hosts of the Women's Basketball Podcast. No, not Kevin Schwartz and Rebecca Kopelman. Me, Mia O'Brien, and Mitchell Northam will be in the house at the Rialto to see Ovius and Giglio, split zone duo, big screen sports. Yes.
Big screen sports. Yep.
Big screen sports. We've got a whole stacked lineup and we want you to hang out with us. So make sure you get your tickets. Use code SPF25 for buy one, get one half off, either at therialto.com or at eTix. That's code SPF25 for buy one, get one half off. Tickets at the Sports Podcast Festival. Mitch, let the folks know, what is this Sports Podcast Festival? You went last year. What exactly is it?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And it's basically just week 0 of the college football season, hanging out with your favorite podcast friends. So yeah, Split Zone Duo is going to be there. So, Alex and Richard and Stephen Godfrey, and then Ovius and Giglio, our guys at the OG. And then, yeah, Big Screen Sports, hosted by Kyle and Caroline, which is going to be awesome. And then the night before, we have sort of a pre-Week 0 Sports Podcast Festival event. I think this is at Bond Brothers Brewing in Cary, with Extra Points, Matt Brown, and the folks at Hand in the Dirt, who were part of the Sports Podcast Festival last year. It's a lot of fun. The Rialto has a bar, if that's your thing. They'll have food trucks out there. I believe that I've heard Giglio say that Two Roosters ice cream is going to be there as well. So, it'll be a fun time. We'll watch some college football. We'll listen to some podcasts. It'll be cool.
I'm now realizing yet again, I still haven't texted Richard Johnson to let him know I booked my tickets. I feel like I'm just going to show up and he's going to be like, I missed you at SEC Media Days and now you're here. Or he'll text me about a Jag scoop later this week. And I'll just be like, by the way, dog, you should be listening to the Women's Basketball Podcast because then you would know. We will be at the Sports Podcast Festival. Again, that is code SPF25 for buy one, get one half off, August 23rd. It is time for this week's main event, Mitch. And not going to lie, this one may or may not have been inspired by my other employer, the Walt Disney Company, on WNBA Countdown at the halftime show Sunday. Yes, because we're recording this on Monday. Some bold predictions. I want to rattle off the ones that were given on WNBA Countdown Sunday, because we'll take these 3 out of rotation. Neither of us can use any of these 3. We each have 2 for you here on this week's episode. But then that gives us a nice little pot of, okay, here's some different storylines to monitor as the second half of the WNBA season gets underway. So I loved our friend Monica McNutt's bold prediction. I don't think it's that bold, especially after what we saw in Minnesota on Sunday night. She says that the Atlanta Dream will be the 2 seed in this year's WNBA playoffs. I'm going to run through all 3 of these and then Mitch will react to them. Andrea Carter believes the Lynx stay the 1 seed. Of course, the Dream go up to Minnesota. They get a win over the Lynx on Sunday, although the Lynx, with a ferocious comeback, had an opportunity in the final waning seconds. They cut this one all the way down to 3 with, I believe it was 22 seconds left on the clock. Spoke to the championship pedigree of this team, but the Atlanta Dream ultimately get the win. And then, God bless, Carolyn Peck. We love you, Coach Peck. She said that the Aces are about to make a deep playoff run. Mitch, which of those 3, before we hear your bold predictions for the second half of the season, which of those 3 are you riding with? I'm riding with Monica, by the way. Just get that one out there.
I'm going to ride with Andrea. I think the Lynx will retain the 1 spot. I think that Monica's prediction could happen, but won't. I don't think that the Aces have a snowball's chance in hell of making the WNBA finals or the semifinals. I just think that team is an absolute mess right now.
Not to spoil what my bold prediction is, I have the Aces missing the playoffs.
Ooh.
I do.
Okay.
I'm not afraid to admit it. Okay, so let's check out again. I'm recording this Monday, July 28th. I know there's 2 games that one tipped off, one's tipping off at 8 p.m. But as of this writing, the Minnesota Lynx are still in possession of the 1 seed. They are in first place in the WNBA standings, followed by the New York Liberty, which Brianna Stewart has avoided a serious injury. They obviously are going to get Emma Meesman, who they signed, the 2019 WNBA Finals MVP, who hasn't played in the W since 2022. Belgian national team star. So the rich get richer. The Liberty are still in possession of the 2 seed as of this writing, 3.5 games back of the Lynx. Followed by the Phoenix Mercury, the Atlanta Dream, the Seattle Storm. This is where things in the middle of the pack are very, very much up for grabs. Teams are separated by half a game. The Indiana Fever at 14-12. The Las Vegas Aces sit with a 500 record at 13-13. That, if the season was to end today, that would be the 7th seed. And the Washington Mystics would get the 8th and final spot in the WNBA playoffs. The Golden State Valkyries are a half game behind Washington, followed by the Sparks, a half game back of G State. The Chicago Sky, 4 games back of the Sparks. The Wings and the Sun round out the standings. Look, I know that they are in position to be in position right now, Mitch, but I just don't see anything changing because you cannot dramatically change the depth of that roster. And while, yes, they have A'ja Wilson, and yes, they have a healthy Jackie Young, and you can argue that the injuries to those two players maybe played a factor in their struggles in the first half of the season, and they're going to find something with Jewell Loyd and Chelsea Gray. Well, Jewell Loyd going 0 of 10 is not the most ringing endorsement for a second half turnaround.
I don't see it with this Aces team as it is currently constructed. Now, if they make a big trade before the deadline, trade deadline is August 7th. So we got about a week and a half until then. Okay, we'll see. I don't know. We'll see what that trade looks like if it happens. But
by the way, just real quick note on Jewell Loyd. Last time out, the Aces had to have her come off the bench and started Kirsten Bell, who didn't play all of last year due to injury.
I think when you're starting Kirsten Bell, you're in not good shape. And you're not a team that's going to make a deep run in the playoffs. I think this team has to be blown up at the end of the year. If they don't really turn things around in the second half, I think that you keep A'ja Wilson and you keep Jackie Young and you build around them and you kind of figure it out. The Chelsea Gray Jewell Loyd pairing has not worked whatsoever. I don't think it's just not good. It's not good, not good vibes. I don't see the Aces going that far at all. And yeah, I mean, now that you mention it and kind of like looking at the standings, I wouldn't really be shocked if they missed the playoffs.
Here's their upcoming schedule. So again, they will face Cam Brink-led Los Angeles Tuesday night. So obviously that's going to be, I don't want to call it a litmus test because I don't think she's going to look 100% healthy in her first game back in 13 months, but could give us an indication of what the Sparks could look like and also what the Aces do when facing the height and a front court like what Los Angeles will trot out between Azurá Stevens and Cam Brink. They've got Minnesota, back-to-back games with Golden State. They do face Seattle, Connecticut, then the Liberty, the Mercury, the Wings, the Dream, the Mercury, the Mystics. Point being, they do have Chicago 3 times in their final 7 games. They also end the regular season against the Sparks. That is really spicy to me. It's not an awful schedule. It's not like they're, in murderer's row. I mean, like, the Fever have to face the Mercury like 5 times. I would not want to be that outfit that has to face them 5 times, although they already faced the Dream 5 times. So at least done with that. Yeah, I just don't see it because Chelsea Gray is facing her lowest average assist total in a season since 2018, her second season in the league. Jewell Loyd is on pace for her lowest scoring total in a season since her rookie campaign. It's just not, I don't see it changing. And Carolyn Peck is the color commentator, I want to be clear, for Las Vegas Aces home games and their home broadcast team. So maybe she sees something we don't. And friend of the program, Megan Gustafson's on the team. I root for Meg. We love Meg. But because I don't even see the rotation beyond the starting big 4. Because we've already identified Kia Stokes continues to give you no offensive production at the 5. So then they're trotting Meg out there at the 5, which okay, cool. But then randomly she won't play some games. And maybe that's a mismatch in the scouting report. But then you got Kirsten Bell's going to start. There's just no rhyme or reason. And I think Becky is ready to blow it up too.
Yeah, it's just not a good situation. Again, the Chelsea Gray Jewell Loyd thing hasn't worked. They haven't really figured out who the best player is to kind of play alongside A'ja Wilson in the front court. I think they need more shooters. I think they miss basically all the players that they lost last offseason, and it just hasn't worked out. So, yeah, I mean, you got a new CBA coming up. You got, some contracts coming up. You got 2 more expansion drafts coming up. There's an opportunity this offseason to reshape that roster, and I think that they should take that.
That is my first bold prediction for the second half of the WNBA season. Mitch, start us off. What's yours?
I'm going to predict that the Mystics will make the playoffs. The Mystics right now sit in that number 8 slot, so they are currently in the playoffs. I like this team. I like Sydney Johnson. I think that this team has good chemistry. I also think there's potential for the Mystics to still make a impactful trade deadline move. There's a chance that they still move Aaliyah Edwards. I mean, we'll see kind of what happens, but they're a team that kind of has some pieces they can play with in the trade market if they want to go that route. But also, I kind of look at, their schedule the rest of the way, and it's pretty manageable. They play Chicago twice. They play Golden State 3 times. They play Connecticut twice. They play Los Angeles twice. There's some really winnable games on there. Now they close the season out pretty tough. They have to play Phoenix, Indiana, and New York, or their final 3 games of the season. But I think they're going to be in a position to, grab one of those final playoff seeds.
I love it. And it plays right into the wheelhouse of my bold prediction that the Aces will miss the playoffs. I could see a world, and I'll kind of combine a couple things here, where it's the Sparks and the Mystics and the Valkyries and the Aces both miss out on the postseason. And those are the final 7th and 8th teams, just because I believe in the Princeton offense and the core that's been developed in Washington. The vibes are really, really good. And I really just like what the Sparks are doing.
Yeah, for sure. I'll go ahead and give you my second bold prediction since you mentioned the Sparks. I think that Kelsey Plum is going to charge back and win the scoring title.
We are all in on LA on this podcast, baby.
I'm sticking with that prediction. I think that Cameron Brink is going to have a positive impact on this team. I think that when she comes back, as I mentioned before, I think it really is going to take some attention off of Kelsey Plum and help her score more efficiently. I mean, she's still right now, 4th in the league in scoring with 20.1 points per game. She's, just 3 points off of Nafisa Collier for the lead. Her 3-point shooting could be a little bit better. Her field goal percentage could be a little bit better. All those things. She's also 4th in the league right now in assists with 5.9 per game, which is a career high for her. I think that, I think there is a chance that LA has a solid second half, where you see Kelsey Plum score a lot of points and you see Cameron Brink get involved and you see Rickea Jackson get involved. And, maybe this looks a little bit more like the team that Lynn Roberts, envisioned.
And I'm very excited because I think it speaks to the fact that they've drafted some pieces that do fit around each other. And for all of the dismay we've had at the Jewel Lloyd part of that massive blockbuster trade this offseason, I think the Sparks are the massive winner, and it's justice for Kelsey Plum back home in Southern California. So I love it, Mitch. My final bold prediction is also a player-driven bold prediction. And while I won't go out on a limb and say that this player is going to be the MVP of the 2025 regular season, because I think that award will be given to Nafisa Collier when all is said and done. And I'm sure A'ja Wilson will have something to say about it. But if you're not in the postseason, I don't see you winning that award.
No dice.
I have Allisha Gray finishing 2nd in the MVP voting. She's currently 6th in the league in scoring. She's 2nd in 3-point percentage. Someone from the Atlanta Dream needs to be given their flowers. Individually, yes, the team is going to, as Monica McNutt, in my opinion, accurately predicted, although I think the Liberty will have something to say about it. They will be a top 3 seed in the WNBA postseason. But I think that this has been one of the more underrated storylines because so many have focused in on Brittany Griner being a part of Carl Semesco's 3-point shooting extravaganza, which isn't the 3-point shooting extravaganza that it was in Fort Myers with Florida Gulf Coast. But the fact that the pieces have started to fit together, kind of like what's happening in Washington, albeit from a different perspective. If you had told me before the season started, Mitch, that a pairing of BG, Brianna Jones, Jordan Canada, Ryan Howard, by the way, has missed the last several weeks since her injury right before the All-Star break. She's expected back soon. And then Allisha Gray, that pairing, let alone everyone else with Naz Hillman that they have on the bench. If you had told me that is one of the top 3 teams in the league, I would not believe you. But Gray, I think, has been such a steady hand in getting this team to this point.
Yeah, 2, I would say, quick things. Allisha Gray has never even made an all WNBA team, which I think
she's making
is
one
wild.
this year. I can tell you
she is. I think she's a lock for the first team. She's having a great season. The other thing I would say is, like, I know that Natalie Nakase is getting a lot of love with Golden State. Mm-hmm. If the Dream are a top 3 or 4 seed in the playoffs, like, Carlos Mesko should be coach of the year.
Yep.
I mean, that full stop.
Friend of the pod.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Full stop, should be coach of the year.
I love it. I love it. And of course, if the Valkyries miss the postseason, I think Natalie will still get her flowers because of what she did with an expansion team. And I think a lot of it will stem back to that Kayla Thornton injury. But yes, more love for Carl. And by the way, if Lynn Roberts makes the postseason too, in her first season with the LA Sparks, I think we're going to have to start giving Lynn some credit as well. That is this week's main event, which means it's time to make some money, folks. Mitch and I, the combination of, since I took over the picks for this show for a couple of weeks there while he was on vacation, we have gone 11-10, and we are ready to make a run this second half of the WNBA season and beyond once college hoops starts. Mitch, start us off with this week's 3-pack. Where do we begin?
All right, so we're back in the win column. We're going to begin on Wednesday night. This is 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. This is the Liberty at the Lynx. The Lynx are 2.5-point favorites, and I'm going to take the Lynx and the home points to cover and to win. I just think, if Breanna Stewart isn't going to play, which I think maybe seems like a possibility considering she didn't play tonight as we record this podcast on Monday night. I think it's quite possible that she does not play in that game as well. So I'm going to take the Lynx to beat the Libs at home. I would also just add, in the wake of Breanna Stewart's injury, Emma Miesemann, we
like kind of glossed over that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're having some visa issues.
That was what the report was. Yeah, the Athletic said today that they're still finalizing the visa, but it's like kind of weird because like all the front office folks in New York are like openly talking about it, so they must be pretty confident that it's going to get done.
Yeah, there have been a lot of visa issues in the news lately. So
how was Belgium though? That one's new.
I don't know. Hard to say.
But yeah, no, I like the pick. I just think it sets up perfectly too for the Lynx after a disappointing loss at home to the Atlanta Dream. Even if the Atlanta Dream are a top 3 seed, who else we got?
This is Thursday night. This is 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Amazon Prime. This is the Golden State Valkyries at the Washington Mystics. The Mystics are home dogs by 1.5 points. So I'm going to take the Mystics to cover. As previously stated, like Valkyries dealing with some injuries right now. Mystics, I think things are moving in a positive direction. They're at home, cross-country trip for the Valkyries. So I like the Mystics to cover. I like them to win straight up, but certainly to cover 1.5.
I like it a lot. The Valkyries, of course, have lost 4 of their last 5. They have lost 6 of their last 8. And rounding out this week's Making Money with Mitch.
This is Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern on ABC. So this is the big Sunday game. The Fever are at the Seattle Storm. I'm going to take the Fever as road dogs plus 2.5 points. I don't know if they'll win straight up, and maybe they'll keep it really, really close. I just, even if Caitlin Clark isn't back, I do like how the Fever are playing right now. And I think that even if she's not back, that'll be enough to maybe, keep this thing relatively close, or even maybe get them a road win.
And I think that what we also have not acknowledged yet on this week's episode has been the report that, yes, the Fever released the statement. There's no additional injury to Caitlin Clark. It is truly just a soft tissue we don't have a timetable. We're going to keep evaluating her. The medical team hasn't found anything new. She went to a specialist. They didn't find anything. But then Holly Rowe's update during the Sky game on Sunday was interesting, Mitch, because she stressed that Stephanie White told her that they are not going to rush this. They feel like they rushed Caitlin into practice. Last time when she came back from a prolonged absence, there wasn't really a acclimation practice period. And so they are going to make sure that they do that this time around. And so Holly specifically said the 3rd week of August. And so I thought the fact that she even went out on a limb, and Steph obviously probably told her that that's what they're targeting. That was very interesting to me, but I do agree. I think that the Fever have found a rhythm, even if it's not at their ceiling, because Caitlin Clark's not playing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, those are my 3 picks this week. Lynx at home by 2.5 over the Libs. Sticks at home plus 1.5 against the Valkyries, and Fever on the road plus 2.5 against the Storm.
I love it. Let's make some money this week with the
Cha-ching.
Women's Basketball Podcast. It's time for Last Call. All the storylines that we may have missed, shout outs, closeouts, plugs, all that good stuff. Before we go any further, Mitch, I do want to shout out our friends at The Athletic. Not only did Ben Pickman do a great job of explaining and reporting on the CBA and some of the various characters that were involved in those meetings in Indianapolis, some of the characters that were not, some of the numbers and sense of why this is a thing, why we are having these conversations. Just wanted to shout out Ben because I also listened to their podcast, No Off Season, this week, and was also it's a very digestible, nuanced conversation if you want more on the specific CBA negotiations, which I am sure we will dive into in future podcast episodes as well.
Yeah, shout out to Ben and Sabrina and Chantel and the whole crew over there at The Athletic.
Yeah, highly recommend that episode. It really, like, the 2 stats that really stuck out for me, and I think will stick out for you guys as well. The Las Vegas Aces were bought in 2021 for $2 million by Mark Davis. They are now valued at $310 million.
Mm-hmm.
In 2019, the New York Liberty sold for somewhere between $10 to $14 million, and they are now valued around $450 million. So just file that one away. If you want more this week on that specific topic, go check out their pod. We'll get to it here in the coming weeks, I'm sure.
I believe just on that same front of how much teams are worth, I think I saw a report, maybe it was from Emily Adams, that said that
it's a college bomber, by the way. Shout out Bombers.
Oh, yeah, shout out. That they are not moving in 2026 or being... I think they're going to basically remain in Mohegan Sun in 2026. There have been a lot of talk about the Sun, being sold and moving to Boston or, wherever. It doesn't seem like that is in the near future right now. Yeah, headline, Connecticut Sun to remain at Mohegan Sun in 2026 as ownership evaluates strategic investment.
See, we shout out our friends. We shout out all the fellow media. We love the W media space. Roll Bombers, baby. Some other news and notes. Becky Hammon, I've talked a lot about you punting puppies in the last few weeks after witnessing it firsthand. I didn't get to say hi to my friend Meg. It was really sad because Becky was yelling at everyone except for Asia in Indianapolis on 4th of July weekend. Sad. Tears.
Interesting.
Yeah. But we do want to shout out Becky Hammon, who got to 100 wins in just 142 games. That's obviously a new record in the WNBA. 2 titles in that time as well. It can't go unnoticed. Shout out to Becky Hammon because it is an incredible feat, regardless of sport. So shout out to Becky. Shout out to Bobby Wagner, Washington Commanders linebacker, which still feels very, very weird to say, who is officially the first active NFL player to be a minority owner in the WNBA, Mitch. Pretty darn cool. He's a minority owner of the Seattle Storm now.
For reasons that we just stated, probably a good investment.
Probably a wise choice. Everyone wants to talk about how the WNBA is losing money, but I don't know if I put $2 million in and now I got $310 million. I mean, maybe I lose 40 of that, but I don't know. That's $260 million, $270 million. Sounds pretty nice for just paying $2 million if you're Mark Davis. And no state income tax too. Don't forget. Money
well spent, I think.
What other shout outs you got for us?
I just wanted another kind of news note here. Ashlyn Watkins, South Carolina, will not play in the 2025-26 season. She put out, this statement on social media, talking about how the past year has been a roller coaster for her, and that she will come back even stronger in the 26-27 season. I think it's worth noting, as we talked about Juju Watkins earlier and the whole ACL thing, Ashton Watkins also tore her ACL last year in January. And now we get the announcement that she will not play at all this season. I do think, it is noteworthy. I know that, South Carolina does have really good post depth again, as they always do. Chloe Kitts is back and Joyce Edwards is back off of playing, really awesome performance at the America for Team USA. And they got Medina Okot, 6'6" transfer from Mississippi State, who averaged a double-double essentially last year in the SEC.
By the way, too, Taniyah Latson's going to come hang out. Because,
right. By the way.
Why not?
Yeah. So, this is a bummer for South Carolina, but I think that they'll be just fine without her. They went to the national championship game without her last year. But certainly, when you look back at like the 2024 season, she was a really big part of them, steamrolling their way to the national title. I think she had 20 rebounds against NC State in that Final Four game. So, really good player who, hopefully we'll see return back to the court in 26-27.
And then another note from you as well on the international circuit, Mitch.
Oh, yeah. So Malaysia Fuwali just won a gold medal playing for Team USA's 3-on-3 team, one of the youth teams in a tournament overseas. And I am kind of starting to just think about the Olympics in 2028 a little bit. And so I'm just going to throw out a prediction. I think this is going to be your 3-on-3 team in 2028. I think we're going to have Malaysia Fuwali. We're going to have Sarah Strong, Cameron Brink, and Haley Van Lith. I think Fuwali, for all the reasons I just said, also, she would still relatively be a young player. It would be hard for her to kind of break in to the full senior national team at that point. 3-on-3 seems to fit her game really well. She was the MVP of the tournament that happened right after she transferred to LSU. She was awesome there. She was awesome in this tournament that we just had. Sarah Strong has played a lot of 3-on-3 for Team USA, and I think that's sort of the track that she is on for 2028, it seems like. That is also going to be the year where it would be basically her rookie season in the WNBA. Theoretically, there are still some, post players in front of her, Asia Wilson, Leah Boston et al. And, Strong is a really versatile player and can do a lot of things, and that's really valuable in 3-on-3. Cameron Brink, like I just said about the post players, a lot of post players still in front of you kind of for that full senior national team slot. Also, really good 3-on-3 player. She was on the national team in 2024 before she got injured. Then she had to be replaced, all that other good stuff. And then I'm going with Haley Van Lith because I think that she's going to be somebody who kind of keeps herself in the mix in the 3-on-3 game.
Will she be playing in the W at that point? Or I'm just kidding.
I don't know. But I don't know that that'll matter because Sierra Burdick was on.
Unrivaled, so it's fine.
Yeah, Sierra Burdick was on, one of the national teams, and it has been kind of a fixture for Team USA, and she hasn't really played in the W all that much in recent years. So, I think if Haley Van Lith, plays overseas, plays on Unrivaled, but keeps herself in the mix for Team USA opportunities for 3-on-3, that is a game that suits her skill set, as we saw at the Olympics in 2024, where the Americans win the bronze medal with Haley Van Lith kind of leading the way.
Kevin and I were actually looking at a way too early Team USA roster last week, and Sarah Strong was on it for the
I don't think so.
For the 5-on-5, as was Cam Brink. And to your point, Cam Brink was on the 3-on-3 roster prior to her injury, and maybe she wants to chase that before pivoting to the national team, the 5-on-5 squad, because other players who are just more senior will have already moved on and retired at that point.
It'll be interesting for 2028, just in terms of how, Team USA has been an organization on the women's basketball side that I think to a fault at times has been overtly loyal to some of those seasoned veterans. Diana Taurasi 2024. It'll be interesting. Like, is Brittany Griner on that team in 2028? I don't think so.
She wasn't on the All-Star team this year.
Right. So, I think Aaliyah Boston's going to be on that team. Asia Wilson is certainly going to be on that team.
Caitlin and Paige will be on the team.
Right, for sure. We'll see what else kind of shakes out with the post play and some other
not to mention
kind of areas.
Juju Watkins' injury and how, I mean, at that point in time, if she comes back for 26-27, she'll have played a college season. But then if, to your point, she comes back for 27-28, I mean, are you going to take her right out of school? Does she go to the W? Yeah. A lot that still has to shake out. But we are here for that very reason, to keep you up to date on the latest storylines, headlines, analysis around the wide world of women's basketball. He's Mitch. I'm Mia, saying we'll catch you next week.
Deuces.